Incredible boy sells cart, revealing the heartbreaking truth. Dad hasn't eaten in 3 days. Danny stared at the vibrant, weathered lemonade cart, the one that had been passed down through generations, and felt his heart twist. It was more than wood and paint. It held laughter, memories, and a symbol of hope for his family. But lately, silence filled their small house since his father was laid off from the factory. The lack of joy had morphed into a suffocating despair, and Danny's worries transformed into a heavy fog that washed over him like a rain-soaked blanket. An unbearable reality had crept in. His father hadn't eaten in 3 days. His little fingers curled tightly around the cart's handle as he contemplated selling it, a decision that gnawed at him ferociously. The thought of letting go of something so precious felt like a betrayal, yet his heart raced with fear knowing he had to do something. Each day, Danny watched his father's eyes dim slightly, as the couch became his only refuge. It felt wrong to think of money that way, but desperation squeezed his chest until he could hardly breathe. Would the townsfolk understand the lengths he would go to save his father? As he walked through the quiet streets, whispers followed him like shadows. "Just a boy," they said dismissively, shaking their heads. "What does he know about hardship?" Their condescending glances pierced him, amplifying his internal struggle. An overwhelming sadness filled his chest. Danny didn't want to be seen as just a child. He was ready to shoulder burdens that felt too heavy for him alone. But could he do it without forsaking his family's legacy? Before he could descend further into despair, he met Mrs. Peterson at the local park, a retired teacher whose silver hair glimmered like moonlight. Her gentle smile pierced through the weight of his spiraling thoughts. She saw something in Danny, a spark of creativity hidden beneath layers of grief and hopelessness. They began to chat, and with each heartfelt conversation, Danny grew bolder. For the first time, he saw that selling lemonade wasn't just a means to support his father. It was a lifeline, a way to keep them afloat amidst the storm. As he painted designs on the cart under Mrs. Peterson's encouragement, it transformed before his eyes into a piece of art that represented more than just drink. Each stroke echoed the resilience of their family, a vibrant reminder that love and hope could bloom even in the harshest conditions. Yet, the juxtaposition weighed heavily on him. Should he sell his only connection to the past for quick relief? Or could he find a way to uplift his father without severing that bond? The annual town fair loomed ahead, and with it came an opportunity he could barely grasp. Danny decided he wouldn't sell the cart. Instead, he would let it speak for him. It was time to reveal a truth he hoped would resonate with those townsfolk, to share his message of resilience and hope. But as anticipation built within him, the thought of stepping before the crowd tightened his throat. What if their whispers drowned him out? Would they finally see him as more than just a boy with a cart? Before we continue, I need to tell you about something important that's happening. YouTube has been making changes to the system, and many people are losing notifications from channels they follow. If you're enjoying the content, click the bell and mark all notifications so you don't miss the next videos. And if you can leave a like, it really helps with reach. Seriously, it makes a difference. Oh, tell me in the comments where you're watching from. I'm always curious to know who's on the other side of the screen. Now, let's continue. As the day approached, fear clawed at him. Would they truly listen? Could a simple boy with a painted cart really penetrate their walls of indifference? Danny felt like a tightrope walker on the edge of an abyss. The weight of his message loomed. Would he falter or find his footing? The finale neared. Silence hovered in the air, and Danny stood at the precipice of transformation, his heart racing. What would he decide? Danny closed his eyes, taking a shaky breath as he prepared for what lay ahead. The vibrant colors of the cart danced in his mind, each stroke symbolizing not just a drink, but an echo of those who had come before him. This cart held stories and laughter, and he would carry that legacy forward. But he also had to confront the dire reality of his father's hunger. The juxtaposition burned in his stomach, a complicated knot of determination and fear. In the week leading up to the town fair, his hands had worked tirelessly. He practiced pouring lemonade, perfecting the recipe his mother had taught him long ago. The focus it required began to quiet the chaos inside him, shifting his nervous energy from anxiety to purpose. Danny found himself working around the neighborhood, offering to wash cars or mow lawns for some extra change. Each dollar earned felt like a testament to his resolve. But it wasn't just the money, it was the sense of accomplishment. With each task completed, he felt like he was learning something new about himself, growing in ways he hadn't anticipated. He found out he could charm neighbors with his earnestness and unyielding optimism. Each smile he received in return lit a little spark inside him, giving him hope that lifted some of the darker clouds looming over their home. Even Mrs. Peterson noticed the transformation. "You're coming alive with this project, Danny," she encouraged him one afternoon, leaning against the cart. "You realize that the world often underestimates you, but strength often resides in the places people overlook." Her words resonated within him, igniting a resolve he couldn't fully articulate. What had he overlooked in himself? The answer began to surface. Danny was more than a boy burdened by his father's struggles. He was tenacious and creative, someone with the audacity to confront an indifferent world. As the day approached, he started penning small notes about his journey, little snippets of his experiences intertwined with words of encouragement woven through questions of perseverance. He would display them next to the cart, inviting others not just to buy lemonade, but to share their stories too. This idea sparked a reclusive fire within him that burned brighter than fear. Nevertheless, doubt still wrapped around him like a second skin. What if he stumbled on stage? What if no one paid attention? He wrestled with these thoughts over and over, each questioning rife with potential disappointment. But instead of yielding to panic, he visualized standing there, the cart proudly placed behind him, the townsfolk actually engaging, listening to the truth he had to share. On the eve of the fair, Danny practiced his delivery in front of the mirror, his reflection morphing into both a child and a warrior. "I'm not just a boy," he declared quietly, each word laced with a fervent refusal to be sidelined. "I am more than my fears." The night brought restless sleep as excitement and anxiety fought for dominance. Images of his father surfaced, his tired eyes, the thinness of his frame. Danny wondered how he could balance his father's survival with honoring their family's legacy. As dawn broke, he tied on his apron, a sense of urgency thrumming beneath his skin as he walked to the fairgrounds. There they were, the lively crowds, buzzing with anticipation. Each person exuded an aura of indifference or excitement, but somewhere among them were those who would hear him. He could feel it. Standing behind the cart, heart pounding, he gathered his thoughts and took a deep breath. Would he, a boy who felt overshadowed, finally step into the light? In that moment, he realized that vulnerability might just be his greatest strength. The sun glinted off his lemonade stand as he locked eyes with the first passerby. It was time to be seen, and the fear of judgment paled against the burden of silence that had festered for so long. He opened his mouth to speak, intending to share his story, to unveil the depths of his struggle. Yet before he could utter a single word, he noticed a familiar figure stepping into the fray. His father, looking both frail and determined, watching from a distance. What would it mean if his dad heard him? The moment of truth was inching closer, and the stakes were higher than ever. Danny swallowed hard, the lump in his throat tightening as he faced the reality standing a mere few feet away. His father, thin and worn, clutched his coat tighter around his body as if it could shield him from the scrutiny of so many eyes. The very sight ignited a surge of conflicting emotions within Danny: fear, hope, anger, and a relentless urge to cry out, to be heard. He cleared his throat, trying to usher the words forward. "Ladies and gentlemen," he began, voice wavering but rising. "Thank you for being here today." He paused, locking eyes with his father, searching for a glimmer of encouragement. It was all he needed to take the plunge. "This is not just lemonade. This is my story, my family's story. It's a story filled with struggle, but also with love." The casual murmurs of the crowd faded into a silence that pressed down heavily on Danny's shoulders. "I want to share something real with you," he said, feeling the weight of every word. "My dad has been going through tough times. He hasn't eaten in days, and I'm here to do my part." A few people leaned in closer, their interest piqued. With every cup you buy, you're not just getting a drink, you're helping us. You're giving me a chance to support my family." As murmurs of compassion rippled through the air, Danny's pulse raced. The warmth that spread through his belly wasn't just from the adrenaline. It was the ignition of something he hadn't experienced as vividly before. Connection. The crowd wasn't just there for a drink. They were drawn in by his vulnerability and honesty. "Each cup I sell comes with a share of our struggle, but also of our dreams." He glanced sideways at his father, who stood rooted, the lines of worry etched deep in his face. "My name is Danny, and I'm ready to fight for my family, but I can't do it alone." A child in the front raised his hand. "Can I have some lemonade, please?" Danny's gaze shifted back to the stand, an unexpected wave of strength washing over him. "Of course, and thank you for listening." He grabbed a cup, filled it with the freshly squeezed lemonade, and handed it to the boy, who wore an innocent grin. As the child scurried back to his mother, he found himself transfixed by the joy that permeated the atmosphere. Perhaps this connection was exactly what he had sought. Perhaps it was also an awakening to his own potential. The first few cups sold quickly. Each transaction was a small victory, yet Danny felt the stakes rise with every smile exchanged and every supportive word offered. The initial fear of rejection was slowly eclipsed by a growing sense of accomplishment that swelled in his chest. He was not just pouring lemonade, he was crafting a narrative, constructing the scaffolding of hope that both he and his father desperately needed. But in the back of his mind lingered another thought. What if selling lemonade wasn't enough? What if the money earned today wouldn't change their situation? The image of his father's worn frame crossed his thoughts again, each time layering a new sensation of dread atop his newly found empowerment. Would he need to keep pushing harder? What more could he do? Questions swirled through his mind, and he felt temptation near, an urge to isolate himself again, to retreat back into a corner where he wouldn't face unanswered questions. As a small group of townsfolk began to gather, drawn in by the warmth of his story, Danny realized that he could either let insecurity crowd his mind, or embrace this moment as a launchpad for something greater. He opened his mouth to speak again, ready to take them deeper into his world when his eye caught someone in the corner of his vision, a figure shifting awkwardly away from the crowd, someone familiar, yet unexpected. It was Sandy, the girl from school who teased him. The weight of her presence sent a new shock of vulnerability through him. Was this an opportunity to confront the past, or would it only serve to remind him of the chasm between where he currently stood and where he hoped to go? As he stood at this crossroad, the questions multiplied within him, setting the stage for an uncertain yet inevitable confrontation. Could he confront not only his fears, but also the ghosts of his past? Would doing so empower him to rise even higher, beyond the lemonade stand and into the life he envisioned for himself and his father? In that moment, determination surged through him. He was ready to face whatever lay ahead. Danny felt the pull of the crowd securing him in place, yet his focus narrowed onto Sandy. Memories of their past exchanges wrapped around him like a fever dream. Her laughter ringing in his ears now felt like a bitter echo. The moment hung between them, thick with the weight of unspoken words and unprocessed emotions. He held his breath, battling an urge to shrink away from her gaze, but a flame sparked within, urging him to confront her. Sandy stepped forward hesitantly, her expression shifting from mockery to something more vulnerable. I came to hear what you had to say," she stammered, her tone heavy with an uncertainty that mirrored his own. Danny's heart raced. This was more than a test. This was pivotal. He'd already torn down the wall of his shame in front of the crowd, revealing the depths of his struggle. Could he extend that same courage to confront the past with Sandy? "Did you ever think about what you said? How you made me feel?" He found himself asking, his voice catching slightly. She flinched, the color draining from her face. "I didn't mean anything by it. I was just trying to fit in. But now..." She looked at the lemonade stand, then back at him, vulnerability flickering in her eyes. "I see what you're doing. It's brave. Brave." The word felt foreign on his tongue. As Danny wrestled with the idea, he realized this was about more than just words. This was an opportunity to redefine their relationship. "It means a lot more than you know, Sandy. "I'm not just selling lemonade. I'm fighting for my family," he said, his voice steadying as resolve surged through him. "And it's hard to take that fight seriously when I have to carry the burdens of the past too." For the first time, he noticed that she wasn't just a source of his torment. She was also in a place of struggle, having joined this gathering, perhaps to distance herself from her old ways. He saw her more clearly now, human, flawed, like everyone else. The crowd, still buzzing with anticipation, stood at the periphery, drawn into this unexpected exchange. Their eyes flicked between Danny and Sandy, a palpable tension radiating through the air. But instead of retreating into his insecurities, Danny realized he wanted to turn this moment of confrontation into a moment of connection. "Maybe we could help each other," he proposed. "You understand what people want. You have a way of making them feel seen. If you help me reach more people, I can help you too. We can change how others see us, become more than what they think." Sandy's expression transformed, comprehension blossoming on her face. "You really mean that?" she whispered, a fragile hope lacing her words. "Why not?" He felt lighter, more empowered than ever, the fear of rejection replaced by the thrill of possibility. "It's time we stop being our past and start being who we want to become. But I can't do it alone." Something shifted in Sandy's demeanor, the acknowledgement of her past actions evident in her eyes as she nodded slowly. "Okay, let's do it." As they turned their attention back to the lemonade stand, a newfound energy surged through him. Each cup he sold now felt infused with purpose beyond mere survival. The excitement flickered like a flame within him, giving rise to action plans spinning in his mind. Perhaps they could launch a few social media posts. Could they create a fundraiser, expanding their reach? Danny's thoughts raced ahead, each suggestion bubbling with eagerness. Painting a brighter future felt possible. Not just a distant dream, but just then, a ripple of concern washed over him. As they discussed ideas, the murmur of the crowd faded into a dull roar. What if this collaboration hinged too much on Sandy's acceptance? What if he opened himself to the possibility of betrayal again? The lingering shadow of doubt echoed in his mind. Yet amidst his introspection, another wave of determination washed over him, fueled by the knowledge that stepping into this partnership could signify more than he ever imagined. In this pivotal moment, the boundaries between their pasts and the possibilities of the future began colliding in a whirlwind of opportunity. It was now or never. He looked towards Sandy, her face alight with newfound ambition. But before they could forge ahead into the unknown, a sharp voice rang out from the crowd. A figure who had been lingering in the background emerged, someone familiar, someone unexpected. "Danny, are you really going to trust her?" It was Brent, the so-called popular kid from school, looking skeptical and ready to challenge him. As Danny faced him, the stakes shifted once again, and the path to his transformation began to narrow amidst the tension, reminding him just how precarious the ground he stood on truly was. Would he stand firm, or waver under scrutiny? The decision loomed over him like a storm cloud, ready to unleash its fury. Danny's pulse quickened, matching the mounting tension radiating from Brent. The crowd's attention, once focused on him and Sandy, swerved towards this challenge, waiting with bated breath for a reaction. Brent's doubt hung in the air like a noose, ready to tighten around Danny's resolve. "Trust her?" Danny echoed, his own voice steady but the undertow of uncertainty nearly dragging him under. Brent crossed his arms, an eyebrow raised, resilience incarnate as he gauged Danny's every expression. The weight of that skepticism pressed heavily on him. He inhaled, grounding himself. "Why wouldn't I?" Danny responded, his words careful and deliberate, aiming to reflect his thought process rather than react emotionally. "People can change. A couple of mistakes shouldn't define who we are moving forward." A murmur spread through the crowd. Sandy's gaze met his, a flicker of admiration, or was it hope, shimmering in her eyes. This conversation could be their turning point, a chrysalis moment, but he had to wield it wisely, lest it evaporate under Brent's glare. Brent's lips twisted into a smirk as he shot a dismissive glance at Sandy. "Right. And it's not like she ever did you wrong, huh? Just remember, you usually get burned trusting the wrong people." The indecision surged within Danny. Familiarity clawed at the edges of his consciousness. He remembered the sting of betrayal from his high school days, the hurt of finding trust in the wrong places. But now he was learning. Now, he was actively choosing to face the shadows of his past. "You don't have to get it," Danny said, the steady resolve washing through him. "Just because you don't see change doesn't mean it's not there." He lifted his chin, not wanting to show any cracks in his armor. "I'm no longer just a target for mockery. I'm standing for something now." The challenge in Brent's eyes hardened, but that only strengthened Danny's conviction. He felt the weight of the crowd's gazes, shifting to Sandy, as if unsure whether to support her or heed Brent's caution. But within the uncertainty lay a flicker of opportunity, a chance for both of them to reshape narratives that others had constructed for them. "You've built a reputation for yourself, Danny," Brent said, his tone tangling mockery with disdain. "You think folks will just overlook what they saw in you and that?" He gestured towards Sandy dismissively. Danny exhaled slowly, analyzing the strands of his past, his beliefs, and his current aspirations. "The past is part of us, but it doesn't have to dictate our future." As the words drained from him, he sensed something shift within the crowd. No one needed to see them as their past mistakes. They could be architects of their destiny. This was not just a plea for acceptance, but a declaration of his growth. Sandy stepped closer to him, her newfound understanding evident as she tossed a glance at Brent. "What do you know about trusting people?" she snapped, surprising Danny and herself with the force of her words. "We're standing here trying to support each other, and you're trying to tear that down." Danny felt a surge of energy from her defense. Together, they created a barrier against Brent's skepticism. The memories of isolation didn't have to dim his present. "Maybe you're all talk, Brent," Danny persisted, ready to drive the point home. "Being brave isn't always loud. It's about choice. I choose to trust, to believe in the possibility of more. What do you stand for?" Brent's expression shifted, uncertainty coursing through him as he grappled with this unexpected resistance. For the first time, Danny saw not just the kid who made his life miserable, but another human being, swimming in his own fears. The ripples of the confrontation heightened the stakes, a possible transformation unfolding with each exchanged word. As Brent hesitated, something shifted in the atmosphere. A newfound respect or conflict. It wasn't yet clear. Danny turned towards Sandy, gratitude blending with an exhilarating sense of purpose. "Let's show them what we can do," he whispered. This partnership could redefine everything, and for every doubt that lingered, a plan was taking shape. But even as hope sparked to life, the arrival of another figure, a tall silhouette that Danny didn't immediately recognize, added another layer of complexity. He could feel the pulse of anticipation, the reality surfacing that the journey ahead was just beginning, more entangled than he ever imagined. "Danny, I need to talk to you," the newcomer said, a hardness in their voice cutting through the air like a knife sharpened on uncertainty. Imminent confrontation loomed, leaving Danny holding his breath, standing at the precipice of yet another life-altering moment. Would this revelation bolster his courage, or shatter what he was desperately trying to build? Danny's stomach twisted at the sound of the newcomer's voice, that cold edge wrapped around familiar tones he hadn't expected to hear again. He turned to face the figure who stood apart from the crowd, their expression a mixture of urgency and hidden pain. That voice belonged to Vanessa, his older sister, who had always been a steady presence in his chaotic life, but now seemed like a specter of the past he couldn't shake. "I need to talk to you. Now," she insisted, the gravity of her words sending a shiver down his spine. The laughter and chatter of the onlookers faded to a mere hum as the reality of their situation crystallized. Danny felt every inch of the space between them. There was a vulnerability in her demeanor, a silent plea for understanding that pierced through the bravado he had built in this moment, alongside Sandy. "Can it wait?" he asked, glancing at Sandy, who stood frozen, her eyes darting between him and Vanessa, trying to grasp the sudden urgency of the situation. Danny had fought so hard to reclaim his narrative, to stand up against Brent's taunts and ensure that he and Sandy could rise above their respective pasts. Now, the presence of his sister threatened to unravel everything. Vanessa stepped closer, lowering her voice. "It's important, Danny. You need to know what's happening at home." The concern etched on her face spoke volumes, igniting an internal turmoil he had thought he'd managed to suppress. Every moment with Vanessa was entwined with memories of caring for their father, of covering for him when he slipped too far into darkness. Other kids might have been worried about casual adolescent dramas, but Danny had been thrust into the role of caretaker long before he was ready. The implications of her words rushed back, and a knot began to form in his throat. Brent, sensing his victory slipping, couldn't let an opportunity pass. Look at you, torn between your sister's drama and your precious new friendship. Maybe I was right all along. Some things never change. Danny turned on Brent with a flash of anger. This isn't about you, he snapped, surprisingly confident. This is about real life. You wouldn't understand. The crowd moved restlessly at the tension, energy shifting like sand beneath his feet. He could feel Sandy's eyes on him, her support grounding him even amidst the storm that threatened to consume him whole. Danny turned back to Vanessa, meeting her gaze with a mixture of resolve and apprehension. What's going on? He demanded, the words almost a whisper. She hesitated, the weight of her news evident. Dad, he hasn't eaten in 3 days, and I don't know what to do anymore. He's sunk deeper than before, and I can't handle this alone. The words hit him like a punch. He had fought so hard to carve out a piece of his life, to redefine himself beyond the shadow of their father's struggles. The guilt crept in, wrapping tight around his heart. A familiar weight he hadn't realized he had ignored so completely. I thought things were getting better, Danny argued, even though he knew better. The cycle of hope and disappointment felt all too familiar. I thought he was trying. No, Danny, Vanessa said softly, stepping closer as if the distance would somehow lessen the pain. He isn't trying anymore. No one's tried for a while. Danny's chest tightened as he battled every input, every panicking thought coursing through him. He had to decide. Did he go back to the chaos of their home life, or did he stay where he was, pushing forward with what he had built with Sandy? His eyes flicked to Brent, who stood by with an insufferable smirk plastered on his face, as if savoring the turmoil unfolding right before him. Did he really care, though? No. This was about Danny. His choice, his identity, and ownership of his path forward. I can't just leave, he heard himself mutter, though the words felt foreign to him, surfacing from a part of himself he had hoped to leave behind. The cascade of choice fell upon him with chilling clarity. He needed to confront his past, but at what cost to the present he was desperately trying to forge. The crowd's anticipation buzzed, pregnant with the weight of an important turning point in his life. Family loyalty clashing with newfound self-worth. Danny, Sandy said softly, her voice a breeze against the tumult. Whatever you decide, I'm with you. He turned to her, the sense of gratitude slicing through him. Her unwavering support added fuel to his fire, unraveling his doubts and igniting an urge to fight for everything he had tried to leave behind. But just as he felt the first step solidifying under his feet, his gaze fell back on Vanessa. The question loomed large before him, the gravity of his decision threatening to pull him into oblivion. Did he stay and face the reality he had been avoiding, or push forward into the unknown that was slowly crystallizing around him? As he wrestled with the choices spiraling in his mind, something deep inside him knew a reckoning was nearing, one that would challenge not just his resolve, but the essence of who he was becoming. Danny, you need to choose now, Vanessa urged, urgency lacing her words. The weight of the moment pressed heavily upon him, and he stood there, heart racing, waiting for the decision that would inevitably define his next step, while threads of tension entwined with the promise of transformation hung precariously in the air. The sound of silence draped over Danny like a heavy blanket, muffling the world around him. Vanessa's plea settled in the air, thick and suffocating, each heartbeat amplifying the gravity of the choice before him. The laughter and chatter around them faded completely, replaced by the drum of his thoughts. He stood on a precipice, contemplating the chasm between who he had been and who he wanted to become. He glanced back at Sandy, who watched him with eyes filled with a mixture of support and concern. It was a lifeline, a reminder that he didn't have to face the overwhelming shadows of his past alone. Yet the fear tugged at him, both of returning to an unfurling chaos and of the potential disappointment awaiting him at home. He felt like a juggler, One more ball thrown into the mix might send it all crashing down. "I can't," he started, his voice thin and uncertain. He swallowed hard, forcing his thoughts back into the realm of rationality. "I have to know what's really happening." "Then let's go," Vanessa urged, a flicker of hope igniting in her eyes. "We can do it together." The suggestion resonated deep within him. The thought of confronting their father, standing together as siblings, unsettled and yet fortified him. It was time to address the lurking specter of their family dysfunction. That frail line he had tried to draw, separating his old life from the new, began to blur. Danny took a moment to see past the precarious walls he had built. His father's struggles had been an ever-present shadow, but it occurred to him that perhaps those experiences had woven a fabric of resilience within him. He could not deny the toll they had taken, but they had also shaped him into someone who could stand on his own, who could choose compassion over fear. "No, it's not just about making a decision. I need to find a way to make a difference," Danny murmured, his conviction growing. "I can't ignore this anymore. I won't." His acknowledgement of the pain was liberating. There was an underlying strength pulsing through him as he prepared to confront the complexities of his emotions, fueled by a determination he had not fully recognized before. Understanding and empathy crackled in the air, mingling with the anxiety that surged within. He could choose to embrace this, to step forward with hope. Danny turned and met Vanessa's hopeful gaze, feeling the unbreakable bond of sibling loyalty re-establishing itself between them. "Let's go," he affirmed, feeling the resolve settle in his chest. "Together." Without a backward glance at the remnants of his past and the judgmental smirk of Brent, he stepped into the unknown with Vanessa. Outside, the distant sound of laughter faded further into the background, replaced by the impending uncertainty of what awaited them. As they walked side by side, a new thread of purpose wove through his thoughts. He knew he would need to be a guiding light for both Vanessa and their father. But amid that rising light, a question gnawed at him with merciless persistence. Would he find the strength at home to confront the specters that had haunted their family for too long? With each step, he felt the weight of responsibility transform into a burgeoning sense of empowerment. As they approached the door, the juxtaposition of hope and fear simmered beneath the surface, urging him onward. Just as he reached for the doorknob, uncertainty seeped back in. Was he truly prepared for what lay behind that door? Would he be able to pull his father back from the edge, or would this define yet another cycle of disappointment? As they entered, the air felt electric, laden with the possibility of change or further disillusionment. The moment had arrived. The call of family duty was undeniable, but the outcome was uncertain. With the threshold crossed, Danny realized that this reckoning would challenge not only his resolve, but his very identity. But as he followed Vanessa inward, the sense of purpose burned brightly in his heart, urging him forward into the depths of his past. Now standing in that doorway, he confronted the most significant decision yet. Would he have the courage to face his father and the tumultuous emotions that would surely follow? Or would the past consume him again? The answers were about to unfold, and Danny knew he was on the brink of discovering not just what lay ahead, but who he truly was meant to be. The moment the door swung open, a gust of stale air greeted Danny, carrying with it the weight of memories and unspoken pain. The cramped space seemed to stretch endlessly in front of him, filled with shadows that mirrored the turmoil brewing inside him. He stepped inside, followed closely by Vanessa. The immediate sight of their father slumped in a tattered armchair, surrounded by empty takeout containers, ignited a tumult within Danny. This man, once a formidable figure in his life, now appeared trapped in a web of despair. The haphazard piles of memories were ghost-like reminders of who their father had once been. A man full of laughter, who had taken the mantle of security and guidance. Now he appeared disheveled, a shell of his former self, his frailness striking a chord deep within Danny's heart. "Dad!" Danny's voice broke the silence, sounding foreign and shaky. He forgot to breathe as the words hung between them, festering with implications. The heavy silence stretched out in response. His father didn't look up, didn't acknowledge his presence. Instead, the overwhelming scent of neglect festered in the air, stirring both anger and sorrow within him. Vanessa stepped forward, her expression resolute yet tinged with vulnerability. We're worried about you. You haven't eaten in days." Her voice had a softness to it, a gentle nudge that contrasted Danny's internal fury. The years of chaos, frustration, and disappointment rushed through him like a tidal wave. These feelings had been buried under layers of fear and uncertainty, but no longer. He hadn't expected the confrontation to ignite this level of rage, a flicker of which surged through him now. "Why aren't you taking care of yourself? We can't keep pretending everything's okay when it's not." His throat tightened as anger and hurt collided, creating a cacophony of emotions threatening to spill over. At last, their father stirred, lifting his head. The deep lines marking his face told stories of battles fought and lost, of pain that had lingered too long. His eyes underwent a fleeting flicker of recognition, but quickly dimmed, reflecting the depth of his struggles rather than the joy of fatherhood. "I'm fine," he muttered, his voice low and hollow, the mere assertion a futile attempt at normalcy. "Fine?" Danny echoed incredulously. "You're sitting here in squalor, Dad. Can't you see how much we care? How much you need help?" The words poured out, an unrelenting torrent fueled by the anxiety that suffocated him. Why did admitting weakness feel like such a betrayal? "Stop!" Their father snapped suddenly, the sharpness cutting through the tension. "Just stop. You're both too young to understand. It's not your battle." In that moment, Danny's chest constricted painfully. He had spent years distancing himself from this turmoil, striving to sever the ties of dysfunction, yet here it was, the undisguised weight of their father's denial pressing down upon his shoulders. The clouds of doubt rolled over him again. Could he truly confront this man? Challenge a reality that remained so stubbornly entrenched? "What if we talked about that?" Vanessa interjected calmly, her tone placating but firm. "What if we didn't have to carry this alone?" There was a flicker of something in their father's eyes, perhaps hope, perhaps despair. The air thickened as they all held their breath, suspended in that moment of confrontation. Danny's heartbeat raced, a realization dawning upon him. There was a chance, however small, to reach through to him, to sift through the pain for something tangible to rebuild upon. With a newfound intensity, Danny leaned forward, brushing aside the emotional barricades he had erected. "Let me help you. Let us help you. We can figure this out together." His voice trembled, yet conviction seeped through, solidifying his resolve. But deep within, uncertainty battled for dominance. This act of courage might lead to a confrontation that would splinter into chaos all over again. Would he have the strength to maintain this trajectory for the sake of his family, or would the burden of their shared past shatter the fragile connection trying to blossom? As he awaited a response, each tick of the clock felt magnified, amplifying his trepidation. The internal struggle between hope and despair deepened. The choice remained suspended. Perhaps it would take not just bravery, but an unwavering sense of self to face what lay ahead. Danny couldn't shake the thought that this moment, raw and unfiltered, would either solidify what he believed he could become, or strip it all away. Would this be the turning point? Or would he have to grapple with fragments of a broken family yet again? The silence thickened, pressing heavily against Danny's chest. He searched his father's eyes for any sign of connection, a glimmer of that man he once knew. The moment stretched, elastic and unforgiving, and he feared it might snap under the weight of unfulfilled expectations. Danny felt Vanessa's hand brush against his, a subtle reminder that they faced this together. Yet a gnawing doubt wrestled within him. Could the fragile truce he sought to forge withstand the storms of their shared history? "Please," Danny said again, softening his tone. "We can figure this out, but you have to want it, Dad. You have to let us in." His heart pounded in rhythm with each word, a desperate plea disguised as confidence. Their father's gaze flickered again, this time caught between resistance and a flicker of remorse. But the flicker quickly dimmed, as if fear snuffed out hope like a blown candle. "You don't understand," he whispered, barely audible, almost defeated. Yet the moment of vulnerability sparked something in Danny. He felt a simmering awareness, an awakening of a long-dormant resilience. This was his chance to break free from the cycle of despair that had crippled their family. "What if I do understand more than you think? What if I've fought through my own battles to get here?" Watching their father wrestle with the demons of his past, Danny realized he wasn't just battling for their father's attention. He was fighting for his own identity, for the man he longed to become. All this time, he had focused on external validation and success, unknowingly stifling the feelings he needed to confront. Perhaps this moment could allow him not only to reach his father, but also to liberate himself. "Let's be honest," Vanessa urged gently. "You need help, we all do. No one should have to go through this alone." Her words, like a lifeline thrown in turbulent waters, resonated powerfully. Danny turned to her, a flicker of admiration brightening his turbulent thoughts. She had always been the courageous one, unafraid of the hurt. Perhaps by leaning into confrontation rather than running from it, he could find clarity and purpose. He focused back on his father, channeling his own growing determination. "You don't just owe it to us," he pressed. "You owe it to yourself." As if in response, their father clenched his fists on the armrests, the muscles in his jaw tightened with suppressed emotions. The palpable tension filled the room like a storm ready to burst. Danny wondered if the man in front of him could still be reached, or if all hope was lost beneath layers of shame and regret. "What do you think I can't face?" their father finally challenged, his voice cracking under strain. Danny felt the turn in the conversation shift like the tides turning in the ocean, and something primal tugged at him, urging him to take a risk, to lay bare the bleeding wounds they'd all suffered. The truth, the failures, the shame. "It's all here, sitting in this room," he declared, pointing around the disarray with unexpected vigor. "Ignoring them won't make them disappear. We have to acknowledge the pain to heal from it." And just like that, with the air charged with emotions laid bare, he realized he had stepped beyond the line of childhood fears into the uncertain territory of adulthood. Pushing the boundaries of his own comfort, he beckoned the latent strength he never realized was within him. The resonance of his words hung in the air, unsettling yet liberating. But uncertainty still lingered. Would his father respond with the same courage? Or would he retreat further into his shell, leaving Danny grappling with shadows of a fractured family? Suddenly, an unexpected noise, an uncharacteristic sob from their father, shook the air around them. Danny's heart raced, an anxious rhythm matching the uncertainty once again. He swayed in anticipation, realizing the potential for a breakthrough within this raw and painful moment. Could this be the turning point they all desperately needed? As hope and caution warred within him, the depth of this impending emotional storm lingered ominously. What awaited on the other side of that wall of vulnerability? The answer hung like a precarious pendulum, as every second seemed to stretch longer than possible. Would his courage inspire a change, or would it lead to disillusionment? Only time could reveal what path lay ahead. Danny stood amidst the heavy silence, transfixed by the raw vulnerability that filled the room. His father's stormy eyes, once shields deflecting the world, now flickered with something almost human, a crack in the armor of denial. It was a moment Danny had longed for, yet feared all the same. Darkness had loomed for far too long, but perhaps together they could find light. After what felt like an eternity, his father drew in a shaky breath, his voice hoarse but softer than before. "I didn't want you to see me like this." The admission hung in the air, fragile yet revolutionary, as if the weight of 1,000 burdens had finally been released. But Danny couldn't let this moment pass without a response. "We've all been suffering in silence, Dad," he said firmly, stepping further into this newfound bond of honesty. "Ignoring it won't mend anything. We need to face the truth together." Vanessa stood by silently, her hand resting gently on their father's shoulder, a bridge of support that illuminated the path Danny had chosen. He felt the palpable tensions ebb as he witnessed his father wavering on the precipice of acceptance. "Together," their father echoed, a hint of hope threading through his voice. Danny's heart surged at hearing it. Could this finally be the turning point they desperately needed? "Yes," Danny insisted, feeling the fire in his chest ignite into a blaze. "Let's tackle this as a family. I've learned that I'm not just meant to run away from our past. I can learn from it. We can transform our lives together." His voice took on a resolute tone he didn't know he possessed. The shift in their father's body language was immediate. Danny could see him processing the enormity of what was unfolding, how it could redefine not just their connection, but their entire lives. Tears mixed with the accumulating dust as their father lifted his gaze, reflecting a hesitance that Danny understood all too well. "I can't be the only one to come back from this," he murmured, shame lining the edges of his voice. "Can I really change?" "Yes," Vanessa soothed, her voice steady. "But it starts with being honest with ourselves. The shadow of your struggles doesn't make you lesser. It shows your resilience." Her words became a lifeline, an invitation back to a life they could reclaim together. The atmosphere shifted, becoming charged with an energy that felt almost electrifying. The haze of despair thinned, revealing pathways of potential and hope. With each fleeting moment, Danny felt capable of grasping a shifted narrative, one where they weren't defined solely by pain or failure but by possibility. "I'll do everything I can," their father finally said, pulling himself upright, an undeniable flicker of determination igniting within him. "But I need you both. I can't walk this path alone." "Neither can we," Danny said, feeling a sense of fulfillment wash over him as they shared this pivotal commitment. Standing there, the bonds of brotherhood and family renewed, he recognized how essential it was to lean on one another, just as he had taught himself to do when facing the world outside. The weight of the past was not erased, but it had shifted into something he could work with, not against. The shadows no longer ruled his narrative. They were merely threads in an evolving tapestry, a story stitched through shared struggle and unyielding love. Days turned into weeks, and as the trio embarked on the road to recovery, Danny found solace in the progress they made. His father slowly reclaimed his strength, forging relationships with community resources to combat his addiction, transparency dispelling the shame that had once shrouded their family. Danny uncovered a profound sense of pride in both his father and sister, as they each began to transcend the limitations of their pasts. Danny flourished too. The lemonade stand had transformed from a desperate measure into a community pillar, a testament to resilience that drew in those who needed to hear his story. The joy on customers' faces unfolded the warmth of connection, inspiring friendships that eclipsed prior notions of who he was. He learned to navigate public speaking with grace, blossoming into someone who ignited change wherever he stood. And with every cup he poured, he felt more grounded, recognized not just as a product of his struggles but as a beacon of hope for others. His transformation anchored him. He was finally at peace with the boy who had once feared the judgment of others. But the greatest shift wasn't merely an identity, it was the belief that he could forge his own path while bringing others along. His father now stood beside him, not as the man who had cracked under pressure, but as one who recognized that vulnerability was strength. In the heart of their small town, the vibrant lemonade cart remained a symbol of reinvention and a reminder that change begins from within. Danny had achieved a return to self, and in doing so, had conquered the fears that once bound him. And in the embracing sunlight of a new day, he realized he could both protect his family's legacy and forge his own future. This moment was worth sharing, worth spreading. It was time to demonstrate to everyone facing their own battles that fear need not dictate their story. Now you need to act. Subscribe immediately to the channel to not miss the next exclusive emotional stories. Leave a like now to feed the algorithm. We depend on your support. Comment your reactions and theories about the ending. Your voice is essential to us. Share instantly this video with at least 5 friends who need to see this conclusion. Don't wait even one more second to share. True fans of personal overcoming stories recognize the immense value in these actions, and this is the moment for you to show your support.